Hello and welcome to Australian Mountain Bike Magazine. I'm Chris Southwood and this is Mick Ross. You want to say something?
You just said my name for me.
Okay.
No, I look like a gimp.
Okay, I'll do it again. Hello and welcome to the Australian Mountain Bike Video Diaries. I'm Chris Southwood.
And I'm Mick Ross.
And we're here to talk you through a couple of bikes that we've got on test this issue. It's a bit of a head-to-head battle between two of the leading 29er dualies on the market. So what have we got here today? I've got the Trek Superfly 100 Elite. A little bit of background about this particular bike. A lot of you may know that last year it wasn't a Trek, it was in fact a Gary Fisher. Now Gary Fisher was always owned for the last decade thereabouts anyhow by the Trek Bicycle Corporation. But recently they decided to scrap the Gary Fisher name and bring it all under the umbrella group of Trek bikes. And what this really allowed Trek to do was to take advantage of all the knowledge of 29ers that Gary Fisher bikes had accumulated over the last few years. Because Gary Fisher, never a man to do things by convention, decided a long time ago that the 29-inch wheel had a lot of advantages for the average punter, and so he started developing 29ers a long time ago, and consequently the geometry and handling is generally regarded as being ahead of the pack.
And the second bike we've got here is the Giant Anthem X 29er. Second year, Giant have done 29ers and it's first year in dual suspension. So Giant being very strong in Australia and the Anthem being one of the most popular platforms of cross-country racing bikes. It's been long awaited to see the 29er come in, and so far so good.
Now in terms of where these two bikes are both positioned in the market, you'd probably categorise both of them as being endurance racing or endurance riding kind of bikes, and to be honest that's where we probably see the 29-inch dual suspension format being the most suitable and most appropriate in Australia anyhow. They're both 4-inch travel bikes, 100mm front and rear, with the exception of the Superfly here which has got 110mm out the back. Now there's a big price difference between the two bikes, and we should be upfront about that. $3,300 retail for the Giant versus $8,999 here for the Trek Superfly.
The bike weighing 11.8 kilos without pedals, it's pretty light for an aluminium bike at this price point. Starting at the front here, we've got big oversized tapered head tube, runs down a huge down tube, press fit bottom bracket bearings, and all the way back to post mount disc brake tabs. All these things save a lot of weight and keep it all very stiff. Giant have been using their Maestro suspension design for many years now, and they've applied it to the new Anthem 29er. Highly regarded and very efficient, giving out 4 inches of very plush, smooth suspension travel.
Rightio, a few points now on the construction of the Superfly 100. It's a carbon fibre bike and it's also handmade in the US of A, in the Wisconsin factory of Trek bikes. So that sort of qualifies that expensive price to a degree and gives the frame an air of prestige. Again, there's a lot of technology involved in this bike, all basically geared around keeping the thing as light and as stiff as it can possibly be. There's a tapered head tube up front, and down here press fit bottom bracket bearings, both of which save weight and add stiffness to the frame. Moving to the rear, you can see that the bike utilises the ABP, or active braking pivot system, that's found on Trek bikes throughout the entire range. It's designed to keep the suspension nice and active under braking forces. Now all this carbon fibre in the frame and the swing link here obviously is designed to keep the weight down, and they've done it very successfully. The whole bike weighs in at a paltry 11 kilos on the nose, which is super light for a dual suspension bike with this much travel. And compared to the Giant, it's saving 800 grams. Now that's a fair whack of weight in anyone's book.
With the Giant, for $3,300, the spec is fantastic. We've got a full Shimano XT Dynasys group set, from the shifters, derailleurs, cranks, cassette, it's all there. Excellent, reliable stuff. The Elixir CR brakes, very reliable again. Can't get much better for the dollars on this bike. With a Fox F29 float RLC fork, all the bells and whistles, all the knobs and dials you need. Fox float RP23 shock, again top of the line stuff. The Anthem 29er rolls on a very nice set of wheels. They're using Giant's own rim. Looks pretty beefy, but it's actually a very light set of wheels and rolling on a very decent DT Swiss 350 rear hub with its star ratchet mechanism, super reliable and very efficient. Giant are also using their controls, bar, stem, post, bar, mixed reports, mixed opinions. It's very straight and very wide and very flat. Stem, fantastic. Titanium hardware, keeping it all nice and light. Pretty good for this price point. Seat post, not a worry. All good gear. Keeps it all looking very nice and matching as well.
The Superfly 100 coming at $9,000, you'd expect it to have some pretty high-end kind of componentry and indeed it does. Look at the drivetrain, it's running the complete SRAM EXO 2x10 drivetrain. We're really impressed with this stuff. The 2639 chainrings are ideal in our mind for this kind of bike, and it's all paired to an 11 to 36 cassette out back, giving you a nice, wide and usable gear range. The rest of it's all very light. A super light wheel set, 28 spoker, front and rear, using some pretty trick white looking spokes. It's made by Bontrager, which is the in-house componentry brand of all of Trek bikes. Likewise, Bontrager makes the carbon post and the carbon bar, which we all really like the shape of. It's a super nice bar. You might notice that the fork doesn't have a 15mm axle, unlike the Giant, which does raise some concerns in terms of the stiffness of the fork, but using an oversized hub with a bigger axle than normal, the Fisher control column, as it's called on this bike, it means that the stiffness isn't actually too bad. You also might notice the sticker on this side that says G2. That refers to the Genesis 2 geometry, which is unique to the Fisher bikes, or the Trek bikes rather now. Basically, it's a way of using an offset crown in the fork that has more offset than a traditional fork to reduce the trail. Now what that does is gives you a better mix of high and low speed control when compared to a standard fork. Moving back, Fox RP2 3 rear shock, as we said before, really, really good stuff. Now, for two bikes that on paper are very similar in terms of a pretty comparable kind of weights, similar travel, obviously both 29ers, you'd expect them to ride fairly similarly, but out in the trail they're actually pretty different in terms of how they behave. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, they'll definitely suit two different riders. So we've broken it down and found the pluses and minuses of both riding characteristics.
Definitely. Now the Giant here, you'd have to say pretty much typifies what the whole 29er dual suspension thing is about, which is its ability to ride up, down, and over just about anything that the trail puts in front of you with a lot of confidence.
It feels pretty big underneath you, and not much gets in its way.
I guess part of that is the long wheelbase of this bike. Compared to the Gary Fisher, it uses a much longer chainstay. A lot of that's to do with the fact that they've got to somehow fit in that Maestro suspension linkage. The lower link sitting where it does makes it pretty hard to get the chainstays much shorter than they have at the moment, which is always a battle with 29ers. Having said that, it does give it a lot of stability.
I always felt very comfortable at high speed on the Giant. Stiff frame, stiff fork, really good suspension action. Just gave me a lot of confidence when the pace was high.
I definitely agree with that too. Having said that, I really did prefer the way that the Gary Fisher handled at slower speeds. Yes, at high speeds, slightly flexier fork, for instance, did make it feel a little bit more skittish and didn't feel quite as planted. But geez, when you got into a tight corner or when you had a tight uphill switchback or something like that to negotiate, the Giant just couldn't match it. Again, that's partly to do with the geometry, partly to do with the weight. The super light wheels on that Gary Fisher juice, you can just get it accelerating really, really quickly when you need to. So the Gary Fisher definitely outdid the Giant in the slower speed and the tighter terrain, whereas the Giant, once you started moving and just wanted to plough some fire roads or launch off things at high speed, super, super confident. So at the end of the day, I guess we need to talk about what we would choose if we were laying down our hard-earned cash. And it's a hard call. I mean, realistically, of course, the Gary Fisher, or the Trek rather, is going to be way outside the price point of most people. $9,000. You could buy the Giant, take 2 holidays to Rotorua, take your family, and still have change left over compared to buying the Trek. So that's going to make the decision straight away for a lot of people. But if you've got the money, and you know what you're after in terms of a race bike or a really, really great endurance riding bike, the Trek's pretty hard to go past.
Love carbon.
Yeah,
you love carbon.
Yeah. You love carbon, or you just like the prestige of owning a nice handmade frame, and you like the sort of heritage of the brand. Then the Trek is a real winner. I think its handling too is probably more inspiring than the Giant overall. It's blending that 26 and the 29 sort of feel, giving the extra manoeuvrability, but still managing to do all those things that the Giant can do so well. Climbing and still bombing those descents and still making the terrain a lot smoother than it would be on a 26-inch bike. I do wish the Trek came with a 15mm fork.
Yeah.
I think that'd take it to the next level and probably close that gap between the Giant and the Trek in terms of the descending ability, and probably give it more of a clear kind of win. So, end of the day though, you pay your money, or you pay a lot of money. It's up to you to really make the call on where your priorities lie.